She was
conspired
8 months
transfer,
pregnant
the
when she discovered the
signature.
signature.
It
Her
can't be.
signature. On a document she had never seen. Authorizing a transfer she had never approved. $400,000. Gone. But that was just the beginning. What Eleanor Whitmore uncovered next would shatter everything she believed about her marriage, her husband, and the life she thought they were building together. A secret affair, a hidden bank account, a 63-page plan designed to destroy her at her most vulnerable moment. They thought a pregnant woman would be too
Proof
distracted
of
to
final
notice,
funds are all
too
accounted for
exhausted to
right
fight
here.
back, too weak to survive.
Excuse me.
They were wrong.
We need
This
to
is the
speak with
story of
Mr.
betrayal
Whitmore
so
immediately.
calculated it will make your blood run cold. And a woman so determined that nothing could stop her from protecting her child and reclaiming everything that was stolen. Stay with me until the end, because the way this story unfolds will leave you absolutely speechless. This is husband and his mistress conspire to seize his pregnant wife's assets, ending in a lifetime of regret. The words hit her like ice water on a winter morning. Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to look at this signature. Eleanor Whitmore looked up from her quarterly reports, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. Her assistant Jessica stood in the doorway of her corner office, clutching a manila folder against her chest like it contained something dangerous. The girl's face was pale. Her hands trembled slightly. Her eyes darted around the room, refusing to meet Ellie's gaze directly. What is it, Jessica? Ellie asked, setting down her Mont Blanc pen, the one Grant had given her for their 5th anniversary. The one she used to sign every important document. The accountant flagged these documents this morning. Jessica walked forward slowly, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She placed the folder on Ellie's mahogany desk with the care of someone handling explosives. Mr. Patterson said you need to see them immediately. He said it was urgent. Ellie removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. At 8 months pregnant, every movement required extra effort. Her back ached constantly. Her feet were swollen. The baby seemed to think her bladder was a trampoline. She shifted in her ergonomic chair, the leather creaking softly, and reached for the folder. The paper felt ordinary. Manila. Standard. Nothing to indicate that it would change her life forever. The baby kicked, a strong one, right under her ribs, like a warning she didn't yet understand. She opened the folder and began to read. The first document was a wire transfer authorization dated 4 months ago. The amount made her blink. $400,000, routed to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. An account number she had never seen before in her life. At the bottom of the page was her signature. Except she had never signed this document. Ellie stared at the signature for a long moment. Her heart began to beat faster. Her mouth went dry. She reached for the glass of water on her desk and took a slow sip, buying herself time to think. The signature looked exactly like hers. The slight upward slant on the capital E. The way she connected her first and last name with a small loop. The flourish at the end that her mother had always said looked like a tiny wave. Every detail was perfect. Every curve and line was identical to her own handwriting. But she had never authorized this transfer. She had never seen this account number. She had never signed this page. Someone had forged her signature. Someone who knew exactly how she wrote. There are more, Jessica said quietly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Ellie turned to the next document. Another wire transfer. $350,000. Same offshore account. Same perfect signature. Dated 3 months ago, the third document showed another $450,000. Same account. Same signature. Dated 6 weeks ago. She did the math automatically. 400,000 plus 350,000 plus 450,000. $1.2 million. Gone. The coffee cup on her desk had gone cold hours ago. Ellie picked it up anyway and took a sip. Bitter, lukewarm, like everything else that morning. Her hand was steady, remarkably steady, considering her world had just tilted sideways on its axis. Who else has seen these? She asked. Her voice came out calm, professional. The voice she used in business negotiations when the stakes were high. Just me and Mr. Patterson. He called me into his office first thing this morning, before anyone else arrived. He said we should keep this confidential until you decided how to proceed. Walter Patterson had been her accountant for 8 years. He was meticulous, careful. The kind of man who triple-checked everything and still worried he had made a mistake. If Walter said these documents were problematic, they were problematic. Thank you, Jessica. Ellie closed the folder and placed her hands flat on the desk. Please close the door on your way out, and please hold my calls for the next hour. It's all of them. Jessica hesitated at the door. Her young face was creased with worry. Mrs. Whitmore, are you okay? Should I call Mr. Whitmore? He might want to know about this. The mention of her husband's name sent something cold and sharp through Ellie's chest, a feeling she couldn't quite identify. Not suspicion exactly, not yet, just something. Something that made her want to be careful. No. The word came out faster than she intended. She softened her tone. Thank you, but no, I just need some time to review these documents privately. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. But even as she said the words, she didn't believe them. After Jessica left, pulling the door closed with a soft click, Ellie sat perfectly still. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. 23 floors below, the city hummed with ordinary life. Cars honked impatiently. Pedestrians hurried to lunch meetings. A siren wailed in the distance. The world continued spinning as if nothing had changed. She picked up her phone and called Walter Patterson directly. He answered on the first ring like he had been waiting by the phone. Mrs. Whitmore. His voice was tight, careful, professionally concerned. I assume you've seen the documents. I have. Tell me everything, Walter. From the beginning. He sighed heavily, the sound of a man who had spent the past several hours dreading this conversation. I was doing the quarterly audit last week. Routine stuff. Reconciling accounts, checking for discrepancies. That's when I noticed the first transfer. I thought it was a mistake at first, maybe a duplicate entry or a misclassified transaction. But it wasn't. No, I dug deeper, found the second transfer, then the third. All of them authorized with your signature. All of them routed through accounts that don't appear anywhere in your company records or your personal financial statements. Ellie closed her eyes. The numbers swam in her head. $1.2 million. 10 years of building Whitmore Interiors from a one-woman operation in a rented office to a company with 47 employees and clients across the eastern seaboard. Someone had stolen $1.2 million with the stroke of a forged pen. And you're certain the signatures are forged? She asked, even though she already knew the answer. I had them analyzed by a document specialist I trust. Off the record, just to be safe. He confirmed they're forgeries. Very good forgeries. Professional quality, but forgeries nonetheless. Professional quality. That meant this wasn't random fraud. Someone had studied her signature carefully, had practiced, had taken their time to get every detail right. This was personal. Who has access to these authorization forms? Ellie asked. That's the concerning part. Walter paused. She heard him shuffling papers. Only you have direct authorization to approve transfers of this size. But copies of your signature cards are kept on file at 2 locations. Here at my office in a locked cabinet, and at your attorney's office. Sullivan and Associates. They keep copies for your business records and legal documentation. Sullivan and Associates, Margot Sullivan's firm. The firm that had handled Ellie's contracts, incorporations, and legal matters since she founded Whitmore Interiors a decade ago. Thank you, Walter. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Don't mention this to anyone else. Not yet. I need to investigate before we take any action. Can you keep this between us for a few days? Of course, but Mrs. Whitmore, if I may say something. Go ahead. Be careful. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They knew your systems. They knew your routines. They knew how to make it look legitimate. He paused. That suggests someone with inside knowledge. Someone close to you. The words hung in the air after she ended the call. Someone close to her. Ellie sat in silence for a long time. The shadows in her office lengthened as the afternoon sun shifted. Her coffee went from cold to room temperature. The baby moved and kicked, restless inside her. She thought about the people in her life, her employees, her friends, her family, Grant. The thought surfaced unbidden, and she pushed it away immediately. Grant was her husband, the father of her child. They had been together for 7 years. He would never, but the thought lingered. Like a splinter she couldn't quite remove. Grant had access to everything. Her office, her files, her signature. He knew her passwords, her schedules, her routines. No, she was being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones making her suspicious. There had to be another explanation. She gathered her things slowly. Purse, keys, phone. The folder of documents went into her briefcase, tucked beneath other papers where no one would notice. She told Jessica she had a doctor's appointment and would be gone for the rest of the day. The lie came easily, too easily. The drive home took 45 minutes in afternoon traffic. Normally, Ellie used the commute productively, returning calls on her Bluetooth, dictating emails to her phone, planning tomorrow's schedule. Today, she drove in silence. The radio stayed off. Her phone stayed in her purse. She watched the city pass by outside her window like she was seeing it for the first time. She kept thinking about the signatures. So perfect, so identical to her own handwriting. Whoever had forged them had studied her closely, had access to multiple examples, had practiced until they could replicate every curve and flourish. This wasn't the work of a stranger. This was the work of someone who knew her, someone she trusted. Grant's car was in the driveway when she arrived home. His silver BMW, the one she had bought him for their 5th anniversary because his old car had started making concerning noises. He was home early. That was unusual. He usually worked until 6 or 7. Ellie parked her Tesla beside him in the garage, sat there for a moment staring at the door that led into the house. Through the thick walls, she could hear music playing. Something classical. Chopin, maybe. Grant only listened to classical music when he was cooking. He said it helped him relax, made him feel sophisticated. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her eyes looked tired, worried. Mumpan. She couldn't let him see that. She practiced her expression. Normal, calm, unsuspecting. The face of a woman who had no idea her world was falling apart. Then she went inside. The kitchen smelled like garlic and lemon. Pots bubbled on the stove. Grant stood at the counter, chopping herbs with the expensive knife set she had bought him last Christmas. There you are. He looked up with a smile. That perfect smile that had charmed her at a charity gala 7 years ago. Dark hair going distinguished silver at the temples. Blue eyes that crinkled warmly at the corners. Still handsome. Still the man she had fallen in love with over champagne and small talk. He wiped his hands on a dish towel and crossed the kitchen to greet her, kissed her forehead, placed a gentle hand on her swollen belly. I was starting to worry. Jessica said you left early. Is everything okay? Just tired, Ellie said. The lie came out smoothly. The baby has been active today. Dr. Torres said I should rest more. Grant's face creased with concern. You work too hard. You always have. You need to start taking it easier, especially now. I know, I'm trying. He smiled again and gestured toward the living room. Go sit down, put your feet up. I'm making your favorite. Chicken piccata with angel hair pasta. It'll be ready in about 20 minutes. That sounds wonderful. Ellie walked to the living room and lowered herself onto the leather sofa. Every joint ached. Every muscle protested. At 8 months pregnant, her body felt like it belonged to someone else. She watched Grant move around their gourmet kitchen, humming along with the Chopin, opening a bottle of wine, pouring himself a glass of the expensive Pinot Grigio she had bought on their last vacation in Napa Valley. He looked happy, relaxed, completely at ease. She thought about the documents in her briefcase. $1.2 million. Someone had stolen $1.2 million from her. Someone who knew her signature intimately. Someone who had access to her legal documents. Grant turned and caught her watching him. He smiled that charming smile. What? He asked. Nothing. She forced herself to smile back. Just thinking about how lucky I am. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Dinner was delicious. Grant had outdone himself. The chicken was perfectly crispy. The pasta was al dente. He had even made her favorite dessert, tiramisu, because he knew she had been craving it. He talked about his day at work, sales meetings, client calls, a new pharmaceutical rep who didn't know the difference between a generic and a name brand. Ellie listened and nodded and made appropriate comments, but her mind was elsewhere. running through possibilities, analyzing data, trying to make sense of something that made no sense. After dinner, Grant cleaned up while Ellie took a bath. She lay in the warm water, one hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered. "What's going on here?" The baby kicked in response. No answers, just movement. Later that night, after Grant fell asleep beside her, Ellie lay awake in the darkness. She stared at the ceiling, counted the shadows cast by the streetlight outside their window, listened to her husband breathe. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, careful not to disturb him. Opened her email, read the documents again, studied the signatures again. They were perfect forgeries. Walter's expert had confirmed it. But perfect forgeries required more than skill. They required access, opportunity, motive. Who had it all three? 3 times she started to wake Grant. 3 times she stopped herself. Something held her back. Some instinct she couldn't name. Some small voice whispering that she needed more information before she said anything. She refreshed her email. Nothing new. Refreshed again. Still nothing. Her finger kept tapping the screen like it might change what she had just learned. Like checking one more time might make the documents disappear. The baby kicked again. Restless. Unsettled. Like she could feel her mother's anxiety. "I know," Ellie whispered, placing her hand on her belly. "I know, sweetheart. Mommy's worried too." She finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning. Her dreams were dark and formless. Shadows chasing her through empty corridors, doors that wouldn't open, voices calling her name from far away. When she woke, gray morning light filtered through the curtains. Grant's side of the bed was empty. A note on his pillow said he had an early meeting. He would call her later. He loved her. Ellie read the note 3 times. Then she crumpled it up and threw it away. She showered and dressed. Professional clothes, put together, armor for whatever was coming. She had a mission today, and she wasn't going to stop until she had answers. The drive downtown took forever in morning traffic. Ellie drummed her fingers on the steering wheel, watching the minutes tick by. Every red light felt like a personal insult. Finally, she pulled into the parking garage beneath the building that housed Sullivan and Associates, found a spot near the elevator, took several deep breaths before getting out of the car. The lobby was all marble and glass, expensive art on the walls, a fountain burbling in the corner, everything designed to convey wealth and competence and trust. The elevator carried her to the 14th floor. The doors opened onto a reception area decorated in muted grays and blues, tasteful, professional, reassuring. The receptionist smiled warmly when she saw Ellie. "Mrs. Whitmore, so good to see you. We weren't expecting you today. Do you have an appointment?" "No, I just need to review some documents from my file. It shouldn't take long, a signature verification issue. Routine stuff." "Of course. Let me get someone to help you." Ellie waited in the reception area. The leather chairs were soft. The art on the walls was original. Everything about Sullivan and Associates spoke of money and discretion and trust. She had trusted them for 10 years. A door opened down the hallway. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Ellie looked up. A young woman walked toward her. Pretty, late 20s, dark hair pulled back in a sleek professional bun. A tailored navy dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Expensive earrings that caught the light with every movement. "I'm Vanessa Crane," the woman said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I'm a paralegal here. I handle a lot of the corporate document filing. I can help you access your files." Vanessa. The name tugged at something in Ellie's memory. She had heard it before somewhere. Grant had mentioned it at some point. A colleague's daughter, maybe. Someone he knew from the gym or a networking event. "Thank you," Ellie said, shaking the offered hand. Vanessa's grip was firm, confident. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She followed Vanessa down the hallway to a small conference room. The paralegal moved efficiently, her heels clicking against the tile floor. She pulled files from a locked cabinet, spread documents across the polished mahogany table. "What specifically are you looking for?" Vanessa asked. "Anything related to asset transfers in the past year, and copies of my signature cards." Something flickered across Vanessa's face, so quickly that Ellie almost missed it. A tightening around the eyes, a slight tension in the shoulders. Of course, let me pull those for you. Vanessa turned to the filing cabinet, and that's when Ellie noticed something else. The perfume. It was subtle, expensive, a blend of jasmine and sandalwood that Ellie recognized immediately because she smelled it every time Grant came home late from work meetings. The same scent she had noticed on his shirts for months. The scent she had told herself came from hugging female colleagues or sitting next to someone at a conference. The scent that was now filling this small conference room. Ellie's heart began to pound. Her mouth went dry, but she kept her face neutral, kept her voice steady. "Those are lovely earrings," she said casually. Vanessa's hand went to her ear automatically. "Oh, thank you. They were a gift." Pearl drops with small diamonds. Elegant, distinctive. Ellie recognized them. She had bought them for herself 2 years ago from a jewelry store in Boston. They had gone missing from her jewelry box 3 months later. She had searched everywhere, asked Grant if he had seen them. He said the clasp must have broken, said she probably lost them somewhere, said he would buy her new ones. Those earrings were now in Vanessa Crane's ears. The room tilted. Ellie gripped the edge of the conference table to steady herself. The baby kicked hard, like she could feel her mother's distress. "Are you all right?" Vanessa asked. Her voice dripped with false concern. "Can I get you some water? You look pale." "I'm fine, just pregnancy dizziness. It comes and goes." "Let me get you some water anyway. You should stay hydrated." Vanessa left the room. The moment she was gone, Ellie leaned forward and looked at the desk where the paralegal had been working. A cell phone lay face down on the corner of the table. As Ellie watched, the screen lit up with a notification. The glow was visible even through the back of the case. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't look. This was someone else's private property, someone else's private life. But her hand was already reaching, already turning the phone over, already reading the lock screen. A text message preview. The sender's name was displayed at the top with a small photo and a red heart emoji beside it. Grant. Her husband's name, her husband's face. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place as last week. Counting the hours, baby." Ellie sat back in her chair. The room was spinning now. Really spinning. Her husband was having an affair with the paralegal who handled her legal documents. The documents that required her signature, the signatures that had been forged. The door opened. Vanessa returned with a glass of water and that same practiced smile. "Here you go," she said, setting the glass down. "Is there anything else you need?" Ellie looked at her, really looked, saw the careful makeup designed to look natural, saw the expensive clothes on a paralegal's salary, saw the stolen earrings hanging from her ears, saw the woman who was sleeping with her husband, the woman who was helping him steal everything she had built. "No," Ellie said. Her voice was steady, remarkably steady. "I have everything I need." She gathered the documents she had requested, made copies of her signature cards, thanked Vanessa warmly for her help. "Please tell Miss Sullivan I said hello," she added at the door. "We should have lunch soon." "I'll let her know." Ellie walked out of the office with her head held high, pressed the elevator button, waited for the doors to open. In the elevator, alone at last, she leaned against the wall. Her legs were shaking, her hands were trembling, her whole body wanted to collapse. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She had too much to do first. She drove to a gas station 3 miles from her house, parked in the lot behind the building where no one could see her, turned off the engine. She sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, processing nothing, feeling nothing. Then she got out of the car, walked into the convenience store, bought a bottle of water she didn't want. She walked the aisles aimlessly, looked at magazines she would never read, picked up a candy bar and put it back, studied the lottery tickets behind the counter like they contained the meaning of life. Anything to not go home. Anything to stay in the last moment before her life completely changed. Anything to postpone the future that was barreling toward her like a freight train. The clerk watched her with vague concern but said nothing. She paid for the water and left. Back in her car, she sat for 23 minutes without moving. She counted the time on the dashboard clock. Watched the numbers change. 23 minutes of staring at the steering wheel, processing the impossible, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet. Then she started the car and drove home. Grant was there when she arrived. making dinner again, smiling again, playing the devoted husband again. "How was your day?" he asked, pulling her into a hug. "You were gone longer than I expected." "Fine," she said against his shoulder. "Just running errands, prenatal vitamins, that kind of thing." "You work too hard. Have I mentioned that?" "Once or twice." He laughed, that easy laugh she had fallen in love with. That laugh she now heard differently. Now it sounded rehearsed, practiced, false. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Why don't you go relax?" "That sounds perfect." She walked to the living room, sat on the couch, watched her husband move around the kitchen. This man she had loved, this man she had trusted, this man she had built a life with, this man who was stealing everything she had, this man who was sleeping with another woman, this man who was planning something terrible. She didn't know what yet, but she was going to find out. The paralegal's phone had changed everything, but what she discovered next would make the affair look like nothing. The next 72 hours were the longest of Eleanor Whitmore's life. She went through the motions of her normal routine, woke up beside her husband, kissed him goodbye in the morning, went to work, attended meetings, returned calls, signed documents, smiled at her employees. But underneath the surface, her mind was a hurricane of questions. How long had the affair been going on? When did it start? How had she missed the signs? And most importantly, were Grant and Vanessa working together to steal her money? The evidence pointed in that direction. Vanessa had access to her legal documents. Grant had access to her signature. Together, they had everything needed to forge transfers and drain her accounts. But she needed proof, real proof. Not just a text message glimpsed on a phone screen. Not just a pair of stolen earrings. Something concrete, something undeniable, something that would hold up in court. On the third day, she found what she was looking for. She located a private investigator through a contact at her bank, a former FBI agent named Marcus Webb who specialized in financial crimes and corporate espionage. He was 53 years old with silver gray hair, tired eyes that had seen too much, and a reputation for absolute discretion. They met at a coffee shop downtown, far from her office, far from her home, far from anyone who might recognize her. "Mrs. Whitmore." Marcus shook her hand with a firm professional grip. His suit was expensive but understated. His voice was calm and measured. "Thank you for meeting me. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." They sat in a corner booth away from the windows. Marcus ordered black coffee. Ellie ordered herbal tea that she barely touched. "Tell me what you need," Marcus said simply. Ellie took a deep breath, and then she told him everything. The forged signatures, the missing money, the paralegal with the stolen earrings, the text message on the phone, the scent of jasmine and sandalwood that she now recognized on her husband's clothes. Marcus listened without interrupting, took notes in a small leather notebook. His expression never changed, but his pen moved faster as she spoke. When she finished, he closed the notebook and looked at her directly. "I need you to understand something," he said. "Once I start investigating, I can't unknow what I find. The truth might be worse than you're imagining. Are you prepared for that?" Ellie thought about the baby growing inside her, the daughter she would hold in her arms in a few weeks, the future she had planned so carefully. "Yes," she said. "I need to know the truth. All of it. Then I'll have preliminary findings within 72 hours. Detailed report to follow." They shook hands again. Marcus left first, disappearing into the lunch crowd like a ghost. Ellie stayed behind, staring at her untouched tea, wondering what the next 3 days would bring. The results came faster than expected. She was in her office on the third afternoon when Marcus called. She closed the door, locked it, sat down heavily in her chair. "Mrs. Whitmore." His voice was professional but gentle, the voice of a man who had delivered bad news many times before. "I have my preliminary findings. Would you prefer to meet in person, or shall I summarize over the phone?" "The phone is fine. Just tell me." "Very well." She heard him shuffling papers. "First, the affair. I can confirm that your husband and Vanessa Crane are involved in a romantic relationship. They have been for approximately 2 years. 2 years. The word hit her like a physical blow. Not months. Years. 2 full years of lies and deception. There's more, Marcus continued. I traced the offshore accounts from those transfers. They lead to a shell company registered in Delaware. That company was established 18 months ago. It has no employees, no products, no services. Its only purpose appears to be receiving and holding funds. And this shell company purchased a property 6 months ago, a house in a residential neighborhood, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, nice area, good schools. Ellie's throat tightened. In whose name? There was a pause. Marcus cleared his throat. The property is held by the shell company, but the beneficial owners are listed in the corporate filings. Your husband, Grant Whitmore, and Vanessa Crane. She had suspected. Of course she had suspected. But hearing the words spoken aloud made it real in a way that suspicion never could. They weren't just having an affair. They weren't just stealing her money. They were building a life together. A house, a future. All of it funded by her decade of work. Her sleepless nights, her missed holidays, her sacrifices. Mrs. Whitmore, are you still there? Yes. Her voice came out as a whisper. Where is the house? What's the address? Another pause. Longer this time. That's the part I need you to prepare yourself for. Marcus's voice was careful, measured. I did some background research when the address looked familiar. Cross-referenced it with your file. Just tell me. The house is located on Maple Street in Riverside, 3 blocks from Prospect Street. The words hung in the air. Prospect Street, the tiny apartment with the broken radiator and the mice in the walls. The neighborhood where she had grown up poor, where her mother had worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. The place she had sworn she would escape if it took her whole life. She had escaped. She had built Whitmore Interiors from nothing. She had made millions. She had moved to a beautiful home in a wealthy suburb with a husband who supposedly loved her. And now Grant and his mistress had bought a house 3 blocks from where she started. With her money, in the neighborhood that represented everything she had run away from. That's not a coincidence, Ellie said flatly. No, I don't believe it is. Vanessa had done her research. She knew exactly where Ellie came from. She knew what that neighborhood represented, and she had deliberately chosen to build her stolen life there. It was a message, a cruel, calculated message. A way of saying, we're going to put you back where you belong. Is there anything else, Ellie asked? One more thing. I was able to access some communication records, text messages and emails between your husband and Ms. Crane. I won't read them all to you, but there's a pattern that concerns me. What kind of pattern? References to timing, to your pregnancy, to what they call the plan. They seem to be waiting for something, coordinating around a specific date. What date? Your due date, Mrs. Whitmore. Based on what I've found, they're planning to make some kind of move when you go into labor, or shortly after. The room went cold. Ellie felt ice spreading through her veins. They weren't just stealing from her. They were timing their theft to coincide with the birth of her daughter, waiting until she was at her most vulnerable, her most exhausted, her most distracted. I'll have the full report to you within 24 hours, Marcus said. It will include copies of all documents, communications, and evidence I've gathered. Everything you need for legal action. Thank you, Marcus. Mrs. Whitmore, one more thing. Be careful. These people have planned this for a long time. They're not amateurs, and they clearly don't care about hurting you. After the call ended, Ellie sat in her office for a long time. The afternoon sun moved across the sky. Shadows lengthened on the walls. Her phone buzzed with messages she didn't answer. 2 years. Grant had been sleeping with Vanessa for 2 years, which meant the affair started before they got pregnant, before they started trying for a baby. She thought back to those months of hope and excitement, the ovulation tests and the prenatal vitamins, Grant's apparent enthusiasm about becoming a father, the joy on his face when the pregnancy test finally showed 2 pink lines. All of it had been a lie. He had been planning to leave her the entire time, planning to steal from her, planning to destroy everything she had built. And the baby, their daughter, a convenient timing mechanism, a way to ensure she would be weak and distracted when they made their final move. The thought made her physically sick. She barely made it to the private bathroom attached to her office before she threw up. Afterward, she sat on the cold tile floor, her back against the wall, her hands on her belly. The baby moved, a strong kick followed by a roll. Like she was saying, "I'm here, Mom. I'm on your side." "I'm so sorry," Ellie whispered. "I'm so sorry I married him. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm so sorry for everything." But apologies wouldn't fix this. Only action would. She pulled herself up, washed her face, reapplied her makeup, looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red but dry. Her face was pale but determined. She looked like a woman who had been knocked down but was getting back up. Good. That was exactly what she needed to look like. She called Margot Sullivan. Margot was more than just her attorney. She was her mentor, her friend, the woman who had taken a chance on a scrappy young entrepreneur with a business plan and a dream. The woman whose name was on the door of the firm where Vanessa Crane forged signatures and stole secrets. "Eleanor." Margot's voice was warm but concerned. "My assistant said you called 3 times. What's wrong?" "I need to see you, today, in person. It's urgent. Come to my house. I'll clear my afternoon." Margot Sullivan lived in a beautiful Victorian home in one of the city's oldest neighborhoods. Ellie had been there many times for dinner parties and holiday gatherings. Today, she barely noticed the beautiful architecture or the carefully tended gardens. Margot met her at the door. The older woman's sharp eyes took in Ellie's appearance immediately. The pale face, the tense shoulders, the way she clutched her briefcase like a lifeline. "Come in," Margot said simply. "Tell me everything." They sat in Margot's study, warm wood paneling, walls lined with law books, a fire crackling in the fireplace despite the mild weather. Ellie handed her the investigator's preliminary report, watched Margot read it, watched her mentor's expression change from curiosity to concern to something cold and furious. "That paralegal," Margot said quietly. Her voice was ice. "She used my firm, my letterhead, my name. I know. She committed fraud under my roof, while I paid her salary, while I trusted her." "I know." Margot set down the report, removed her reading glasses, looked at Ellie with eyes that had won 100 court battles. "What do you want to do?" Ellie had thought about this question for 3 days, had turned it over in her mind during sleepless nights, had considered every option from confrontation to acceptance to revenge. "I want to destroy them," she said, "but I want to do it legally, properly. I want them to face real consequences for what they've done." Margot nodded slowly, a predator's nod, a shark scenting blood. "Then we need to build a case, a proper case, evidence that will hold up in criminal court, not just civil. How long will that take?" "Weeks, maybe longer. We need to document everything, create a paper trail, catch them in the act of something that shows clear criminal intent." Ellie touched her belly. The baby was moving again, restless. "I might not have weeks. They're planning something around my due date." Marcus found references in their communications. Margot's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to be smart, strategic. We need to stay one step ahead of them." She picked up her phone, made 3 calls in rapid succession. Names Ellie recognized: the best divorce attorney in the state, a prosecutor in the financial crimes division, a forensic accountant who testified in federal cases. Within an hour, Ellie had a team. "Now," Margot said after the last call ended, "tell me about the house, the one they bought in Riverside." Ellie told her, watched Margot's face tighten with fury. "3 blocks from where you grew up. They chose that deliberately." "Yes. To humiliate you, to put you back in your place." "That's what I think." Margot was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steel. "Eleanor, I've known you for 10 years. I've watched you build something remarkable from nothing. I've seen you face obstacles that would have broken most people. But this is different. This is personal. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done." "I know. Are you ready for that? Really ready?" Ellie thought about the baby, her daughter, the innocent life growing inside her, unaware of the storm gathering outside. "I don't have a choice," she said. "They're not just coming for my money. They're coming for my child's future, and I will do whatever it takes to protect her." Margot smiled, a fierce, proud smile. "Good. Then let's go to war." That night, Ellie lay in bed beside Grant. He was sleeping peacefully, his chest rising and falling with slow, even breaths. Completely unaware of what she now knew, she watched him in the darkness. This man she had loved, this man she had trusted, this man who was plotting her destruction. I'm not crazy, she thought. The perfume on his shirts, the late nights at the office, the way he stopped touching me when I started showing, the way his eyes went distant when I talked about our future. I knew. Somewhere inside, I always knew. She had ignored the signs because she wanted to believe in him, wanted to believe in their marriage, wanted to believe that the life they had built was real. But it wasn't real. It had never been real. Grant stirred in his sleep, mumbled something, reached for her in the darkness. She let him put his arm around her, let him pull her close, let him think everything was normal. Inside she was screaming, but she kept the scream locked away, buried deep, because she had a war to fight. And the first rule of war was never let your enemy know you're coming. Tomorrow she would start gathering evidence, installing monitoring software, documenting every lie. Tomorrow she would begin the careful work of destroying the man sleeping beside her, but tonight she would lie in his arms and pretend everything was fine. Tonight she would play the perfect wife, one last time. The burner phone changed everything. Grant left for a business trip on a Thursday morning. A sales conference in Chicago, he said. Very important for his career. He would be back Sunday night. Ellie kissed him goodbye at the door, told him to drive safely, told him she would miss him. She knew there was no conference in Chicago. Marcus had already confirmed it. Grant was going to spend the weekend with Vanessa at a resort in Michigan. A romantic getaway paid for with money stolen from Ellie's accounts. I'll miss you too, babe. Grant touched her belly with what seemed like genuine affection. Take care of our little one while I'm gone. I will. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. I know. She stood in the doorway and watched his car pull away. Watched until it turned the corner and disappeared from view. Then she went to work. She had 48 hours. 48 hours while her husband was away with his mistress. 48 hours to find every piece of evidence hidden in this house. She started in the home office, Grant's domain, the room where he worked from home on weekends while she was at the office. The room with the locked filing cabinet he thought she didn't know about. She knew about the filing cabinet. She had always known. She had just never had a reason to open it before. The key was in his desk drawer, tucked beneath a stack of old business cards. He had never bothered to hide it properly because he never thought she would look. Never thought his trusting wife would question anything. His trusting wife, what a joke. She opened the filing cabinet drawer by drawer. Tax returns, insurance documents, old warranties for appliances they no longer owned. Nothing unusual, nothing incriminating. She was about to give up when she felt it. Something taped to the back of the bottom drawer, bound drawer. Something that shouldn't be there. She pulled it out carefully. A cell phone. Small, cheap. A prepaid burner from a convenience store. The kind you bought with Wish when you didn't want anyone to trace your calls. Her hands trembled as she turned it on. No password protection. Grant had never imagined anyone would find his secret phone in his locked cabinet in his private office. She opened the message app. Hundreds of messages, dating back 18 months. Grant and Vanessa are planning their future in explicit detail. She scrolled through them slowly, reading each one, letting the words sink in like poison. The new account is set up. She'll never find it. Got 3 more signatures today. She didn't notice a thing. When this is over, we'll have enough to never work again. I love watching her trust me. It's almost too easy. The messages painted a picture of calculated betrayal. Month by month, they had stolen from her. Month by month, they had laughed at her ignorance. Month by month, they had built their escape plan. And then she found the message that stopped her heart. It was from Vanessa, dated 2 weeks ago. Perfect timing. The baby is due in 3 weeks. We served the papers in the recovery room. She'll be too drugged and exhausted to fight. By the time she realizes what's happening, everything will be in our names. She can keep the kid. We'll take everything else. Ellie read the message 3 times. 4 times. 5. They were going to serve her divorce papers in the delivery room while she recovered from childbirth. While she held her newborn daughter for the first time, they were going to take everything while she was at her most vulnerable. her most exhausted, her most defenseless, and Vanessa's final line. She can keep the kid, like Charlotte was an inconvenience, a burden, something to be discarded. Grant didn't want his daughter, had never wanted his daughter. He had only agreed to try for a baby because it fit their timeline, because a pregnant wife was a distracted wife, because a new mother would be too overwhelmed to notice her assets disappearing. Ellie set down the phone. Her hands were shaking violently now. Her whole body was shaking. But she didn't cry. She was beyond crying. She photographed every message, every account number, every damning word, sent the images to her secure cloud storage, made backup copies on 3 separate drives. Then she put the phone back exactly where she had found it, locked the filing cabinet, returned the key to the drawer. She sat on the floor of Grant's home office for a long time. The closet door was open. His suits hung in perfect rows, navy, charcoal, black. She had picked out most of them, helped him choose the right ties, told him how handsome he looked when he left for work each morning. She had ironed those suits on Sunday nights, had taken them to the dry cleaner when he was too busy, had hung them carefully in the closet so they wouldn't wrinkle. All those small acts of love, all those tiny gestures of devotion. He had accepted them as his due while plotting to destroy her. She closed the closet door carefully, stood up, smoothed down her maternity dress. There was more to find. She was certain of it. She searched the garage next, his toolbox, his golf bags, the boxes of old college memorabilia he couldn't bear to throw away. Nothing. The bedroom took longer. She went through his nightstand, his dresser drawers, the pockets of every jacket in his closet. She found receipts for restaurants she had never visited, hotel confirmation numbers for trips she had never known about, a woman's earring that wasn't hers. But the real discovery came from his laptop. Grant had left it at home, thinking he wouldn't need it for a sales conference. He had cleared his browser history before leaving, emptied the trash, covered his tracks, but he hadn't thought about the cloud backup, the automatic sync that saved everything to a remote server, the server whose password Ellie knew because she had set up the account for him years ago. She accessed the backup from her own computer, sorted through the files methodically, deleted documents, archived emails, hidden folders, and then she found it, a folder labeled Exit Strategy. She opened it with a sense of dread that bordered on physical pain. Inside was a document, 63 pages long, a detailed plan for taking everything she had. Phase 1. Establish romantic relationship with paralegal who has access to target's legal documents. Build trust over 6 to 12 months. Phase 2. Open offshore accounts using forged signatures. Route through shell companies to obscure trail. Phase 3. Transfer assets gradually over 12 to 18 months. Keep amounts below reporting thresholds to avoid triggering audits. Phase 4. Purchase property in both names as investment for post-divorce life. Location should have symbolic significance to maximize psychological impact. Phase 5. Time divorce filing for maximum vulnerability. Ideal scenario involves medical event, family crisis, or other circumstance that compromises target's ability to respond effectively. Phase 6. File for divorce during or immediately after childbirth. Target will be physically and emotionally compromised. Present settlement demands while target is recovering. Push for quick resolution before target can mount effective defense. Phase 7. Upon completion of asset transfer, relocate to property. Maintain low profile for 6 to 12 months until statute of limitations concerns diminish. Ellie read every page. All 63 pages of cold, calculated planning. All 63 pages proving that this wasn't a spontaneous affair or a crime of opportunity. This was premeditated destruction. This was a long-term conspiracy. This was her husband and his mistress spending 2 years plotting to rob her blind. She printed every document, saved every file, backed up everything in multiple locations. Then she called Detective Samuel Hayes. They met at a coffee shop near the police station. Hayes was a tall man in his late 40s with a receding hairline and the patient, watchful eyes of someone who had spent 20 years investigating white-collar crime. "Mrs. Whitmore." He shook her hand and gestured to a booth in the back corner. "Thank you for reaching out." She handed him a USB drive. Everything is on there. Messages, account numbers, their entire 63-page plan. Hayes plugged the drive into his laptop, read in silence for several minutes. His expression didn't change, but she saw his jaw tighten, saw his fingers grip the edge of the keyboard. They plan to serve you divorce papers in the delivery room, he said finally. Yes. While you were recovering from childbirth. Yes. That's, he paused, searching for the right word. That's a level of cruelty I don't see often, and I've seen a lot. Can you help me stop them? Hayes closed the laptop, looked at her with something like respect. Mrs. Whitmore, you've given me enough to build a case, but I need you to understand something. Fraud cases take time. We need to document everything properly. Build an airtight prosecution. If we move too fast, they could get away on a technicality. How long? Weeks? Maybe a month. Why, Ellie touched her belly. The baby was moving, restless. I might not have a month. They're planning to move when I go into labor. That's less than 3 weeks away. Hayes nodded, he understood. Then we need to be strategic. We need to let them make one more move, one overt act that we can document in real time. Something that shows clear criminal intent beyond what's already in these files. What kind of act? An attempt to access your accounts directly, a face-to-face meeting where they discuss the plan, something we can record or witness. Ellie thought about this, turned it over in her mind. I might be able to make that happen, she said slowly. I might be able to force them to move on my timeline instead of theirs. How? By giving them something they can't resist, an opportunity to take more, to take everything. Hayes studied her for a long moment. That's risky. If they realize you know, they could destroy evidence, run, disappear. They won't realize. They think I'm a trusting fool. They've thought that for 2 years. Her voice hardened. I can be very convincing when I need to be. That night, Ellie ran a bath. The water was warm and lavender scented. She lowered herself carefully into the tub, one hand on her belly for balance. The baby was moving, rolling, kicking, active in a way that usually meant she was going to be up all night. I know, Ellie whispered. I know, sweetheart. Everything is confusing right now, but Mommy's going to fix it. I promise, Aika. She lay in the warm water and tried not to think about Grant, tried not to think about Vanessa, tried not to think about the 63 pages of cold calculation. Instead, she thought about her mother. Grace Whitmore had died 10 years ago, just before Ellie started her company. A stroke, sudden and devastating. One day she was alive, working her third job, planning to retire someday. The next day, she was gone. Grace had never seen Whitmore Interiors become successful, never seen her daughter's name in business magazines, never met Grant. Maybe that was a blessing. Grace had worked herself to the bone for 30 years, 3 jobs sometimes. 4 during the bad years, all so Ellie could stay in school, all so Ellie could escape Prospect Street. She had cleaned office buildings after midnight, waited tables during breakfast and lunch, taken in sewing and alterations on weekends. She had never complained, never asked for thanks, never made Ellie feel guilty for wanting more. You're going to do something special, Grace used to say. I can see it in you. You've got fire, baby girl. You've got steel in your spine. Don't let anyone put that fire out. Ellie placed her hands on her belly, felt her daughter moving inside her. I got your stubbornness, Mom, she whispered to the ceiling. I got your fire, and I'm going to use it to burn them down. The baby kicked, like she agreed. Grant came home Sunday night as planned, full of stories about the conference he never attended, the sessions he never saw, the colleagues he never met. Ellie listened, smiled, nodded in all the right places. She had spent her whole life running from Prospect Street, running from poverty and fear and helplessness. Grant and Vanessa wanted to send her back there, wanted to strip away everything she had built, wanted to leave her with nothing but a newborn and a stack of divorce papers. They had underestimated her. They had mistaken kindness for weakness, had mistaken trust for stupidity. They would learn. Soon, very soon, they would learn exactly who they were dealing with. The house they bought was 3 blocks from her childhood neighborhood, the one she had worked her whole life to escape. But she wasn't the scared little girl from Prospect Street anymore. She was Eleanor Whitmore, founder and CEO of Whitmore Interiors, a woman who had built an empire from nothing. And she was about to show them what that woman was capable of. Ellie made a decision. She would not confront Grant, not yet. She needed more evidence, more documentation, more witnesses. She needed to build a case so airtight that no lawyer could break it. No judge could dismiss it. No jury could doubt it. So she played the loving wife. She cooked his favorite dinners, roast chicken on Mondays with the rosemary butter he loved, pasta carbonara on Wednesdays because it reminded him of their honeymoon in Rome, grilled salmon on Fridays because he read somewhere that omega fatty acids were good for brain health. She asked about his day with apparent interest, laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny, rubbed his feet while they watched television because he said the pressure at work made his arches ache. She let him feel her belly when the baby kicked. Let him talk about nursery colors and baby names. Let him pretend he was an excited father-to-be. Every smile was a performance. Every kiss was a lie. Every night beside him in their bed was torture. But she did it for her daughter, for her future, for justice. During the day when Grant was at work, she built her case. She installed monitoring software on every shared computer in the house, the desktop in the home office, the laptop in the living room, the tablet they sometimes used to look up recipes. She set up hidden cameras in key locations, the hallway where Grant made his late-night phone calls, the garage where he sometimes sat in his car talking to someone she now knew was Vanessa. She photographed his bank statements when he was in the shower, copied his financial documents when he ran errands, recorded his phone calls when he stepped onto the back porch thinking she couldn't hear. She became a spy in her own home, and she was very, very good at it. Grant noticed nothing. He was too confident, too certain that his pregnant wife was too distracted by baby preparations and swollen ankles and prenatal appointments to pay attention to anything else. His arrogance would be his downfall. 2 weeks before her due date, Ellie was ready to spring her trap. It happened at breakfast on a Tuesday morning. Grant was eating eggs and scrolling through his phone. Ellie was sipping decaf coffee and pretending to read the news. "I've been thinking," she said casually, "about the business accounts." Grant's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Just for a second. Then he resumed eating. "What about them?" "I want to set up a trust for the baby to protect her future in case anything happens to me during delivery." She watched his face carefully, saw the flicker of interest, the quick calculation behind his eyes, the effort to keep his expression neutral. "That's a big decision," he said. His voice was carefully controlled. "Maybe we should wait until after the baby comes. You have so much on your plate right now. Margot helped me set it up. The paperwork is already done. I just need to sign the documents at the bank tomorrow morning." Grant set down his fork. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That seems rushed. Shouldn't we discuss it first? Look at the details together?" "It's just a standard trust. Margot knows what she's doing. I trust her." The word trust hung in the air between them. Ellie watched it land, watched Grant process its implications. "If that's what you want," he said finally, "I just want what's best for our family." "I know you do." She watched him excuse himself to check email, watched him pace in the hallway with his phone pressed to his ear, watched through the reflection in the kitchen window as his face contorted with something that looked like panic. She had just given them a deadline. Tomorrow morning, the bank. A signing that would supposedly transfer her assets to a trust. Now they had to move. Had to accelerate their plan. Had to make a mistake. Detective Hayes was listening to every word through the bug she wore under her maternity dress. That night, Grant was attentive, solicitous. He made dinner, drew her a bath, rubbed her shoulders with lavender-scented oil. "You're so tense," he said, his thumbs working into a knot beneath her shoulder blade. "You need to relax more. The stress isn't good for the baby." "I know, I'm trying. After tomorrow, things will be different. You'll have peace of mind knowing the trust is set up. You won't have to worry anymore." "That's what I keep telling myself." She let him pamper her, let him play the devoted husband, let him think his mask was still intact. But she saw the truth behind his eyes now, the cold calculation, the greedy anticipation, the absolute certainty that he was about to get everything he wanted. "Enjoy it while it lasts," she thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. She went to bed early, claiming exhaustion. Grant stayed up late, supposedly watching a documentary. She heard him on the phone in the living room, voice low and urgent. She couldn't make out the words, but she didn't need to. She knew who he was talking to. She knew what they were planning. The bug in the living room lamp was recording everything. At 1 in the morning, she felt Grant slip out of bed, heard him dress in the darkness, heard his footsteps on the stairs. She stayed perfectly still, breathing slowly, pretending to sleep. Through the bedroom window, she watched his car pull out of the driveway, watched his tail lights disappear down the street. She checked the tracking app on her phone. He was heading downtown, towards Sullivan and Associates. She called Detective Hayes. He just left. He's going to the law firm. We have units in position. We'll document everything. They're going to forge new documents, replace the trust paperwork with something that gives them control of everything. And we'll catch them in the act. Stay where you are. Stay safe. Ellie ended the call and lay in the darkness. She made decaf coffee at 2 in the morning, sat at the kitchen table with all the lights off, watched the clock on the microwave count the minutes. 3:15, 3:30, 3:45. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every car that passed on the street could be him coming home. She held her phone like a weapon, ready to call Hayes if something went wrong, ready to call 911 if Grant came back with violence in his eyes. The baby moved, a gentle roll, like she was dreaming. Almost over, Ellie whispered. Almost over, sweetheart. Grant returned at 4:17. She heard his car in the driveway, heard the garage door open and close, heard his footsteps in the house, trying to be quiet. She pretended to sleep when he came into the bedroom, felt him stand beside the bed for a long moment, looking down at her. Then he undressed and slipped under the covers. His breathing slowed. Within minutes, he was asleep. But Ellie lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling. He was right beside her, the man who wanted to destroy her, the father of her child, the stranger she had married. Tomorrow she would end it. Tomorrow she would watch him fall. But tonight she had to lie beside him one more time, had to feel his warmth, had to pretend. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. The morning of the bank appointment dawned gray and cold. Ellie woke to find Grant already up, showered, dressed in his best suit. He had made breakfast, eggs Benedict with fresh squeezed orange juice, her favorite. Big day, he said, kissing her forehead. I thought you could use some extra energy. Thank you. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. This trust thing is important. I want to be there to support you. She noticed he had said support you and not support us. A small slip. The kind of thing she would have missed before. She didn't miss anything anymore. They drove to the bank together. Grant insisted on driving. He wanted to take care of her, he said. Didn't want her stressed behind the wheel. The bank was downtown, a stately building with marble columns and brass fixtures. The kind of place that handled large accounts and complex transactions and matters of discretion. They were escorted to a private meeting room on the second floor. The bank manager, a pleasant woman named Ms. Rodriguez, welcomed them warmly. Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Whitmore, so good to see you. Can I offer you some coffee? Water? Water would be lovely, Ellie said. Thank you. She sat down at the polished conference table. Grant sat beside her, his hand resting on her arm in a gesture of support that felt like a shackle. The door opened. Vanessa Crane walked in. She was dressed professionally, as always. A charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her dark hair pulled back in a sleek chignon, those stolen earrings glinting at her ears. Mrs. Whitmore. Vanessa's smile was practiced and professional, not a flicker of anything wrong. I'm here on behalf of Sullivan and Associates to witness the signing. Standard procedure for trust documents. Of course. Vanessa set her briefcase on the table, opened it, produced a stack of papers that she spread across the polished surface. These are the final documents. Everything you requested is in order. I just need your signature on the marked pages. Ellie picked up the first document, read it slowly, carefully. Grant shifted in his chair beside her. She could feel his impatience, his eagerness, his barely contained excitement. This section here, Ellie said, pointing to a paragraph on page 3. Can you explain what this means exactly? Vanessa leaned in. That's just standard language regarding asset transfer authority. Nothing unusual. It says the trustee has full discretion to reallocate assets as they see fit. That seems broad. It's boilerplate. All trusts have similar provisions. Ellie nodded slowly, turned to the next page, asked another question, then another. She was stalling, drawing it out, giving Detective Hayes and his team time to get into position. Finally, she reached the signature page. The room was silent. Grant was leaning forward slightly. Vanessa had a pen ready in her hand. Ellie looked at the line where she was supposed to sign. Then she looked up. "This isn't the trust document," she said calmly. Grant's face went white, actually white, like all the blood had drained from his body. "What?" "This document doesn't create a trust for my daughter. It transfers full control of my assets to an account I've never seen before." She flipped to another page. "And this section gives someone called the Whitmore Family Trust authority to liquidate everything. A trust that I did not create and do not control." Vanessa's composure cracked, just for a second. Then she recovered. "There must be some mistake. Let me check the paperwork." "There's no mistake." Ellie set the documents down on the table, placed her hands flat on either side of them. "These are forgeries, just like the signatures on the wire transfers, just like every document you've created in the past 18 months. Grant found his voice. "Ellie, honey, I don't know what you think is happening here, but I think you and Vanessa have been stealing from me for 2 years. I think you planned to serve me divorce papers while I was recovering from childbirth. I think you bought a house 3 blocks from where I grew up with my money because you wanted to humiliate me." She looked directly at him. Her husband, the father of her child, the man who had betrayed her in every possible way. "I think you never loved me. Not for one single day of our marriage." The door opened. Detective Hayes walked in. Behind him, 2 uniformed officers, then 2 more. Then Margot Sullivan, her face fierce with righteous fury. "Grant Whitmore, Vanessa Crane." Hayes's voice was calm and official. "You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Vanessa's composure shattered completely. She started screaming. "It was his idea, all of it. I just did what he told me to do. He made me. He threatened me." Grant tried to run. He actually tried to run. He got 3 steps toward the door before 2 officers grabbed him. "This is a mistake," he said, struggling. "I'm her husband. We're having a baby. You can't do this." "You did this," Ellie said. Her voice was steady, cold, completely calm. "You did this the moment you decided to steal from me. The moment you decided I was just a source of money. The moment you looked at our daughter and saw an opportunity instead of a child." Grant stopped struggling, looked at her with something desperate in his eyes. "I loved you," he said. "I really did love you, Ellie. You have to believe me." She studied his face. This face she had kissed thousands of times. This face she had trusted completely. "No," she said finally. "You didn't. You loved what I could give you. That's not the same thing." She watched them being led away. Grant in one direction, Vanessa in another. Neither of them looked at each other. The partnership was already fracturing under the pressure of arrest. Margot was beside her immediately. "How do you feel?" Ellie considered the question. How did she feel? "Empty," she said, "and exhausted, and—" she searched for the right word. "Free. I feel free." Margot squeezed her hand. "It's over. The worst part is over." "Is it?" "The criminal part, yes. They'll face charges, go to trial, be convicted. That's certain now." Margot paused. "The emotional part, that's going to take longer." Ellie nodded. She knew that, but she couldn't think about the emotional part right now. Right now, she needed to focus on practical matters. "What about the money, the assets they stole?" "We're already working on recovery. The shell company, the house in Riverside, the offshore accounts. We'll get most of it back. Not all, probably, but most." "And the divorce?" "I have Bennett Crawford on standby. Best divorce attorney in the state. He's ready to file whenever you are." Ellie looked around the conference room. The scattered documents, the overturned chair where Grant had tried to run, the shocked face of Ms. Rodriguez, the bank manager, who had clearly never expected this when she came to work this morning. "File today," Ellie said. "I don't want to be married to him for one more second than necessary." She walked out of the bank with her head high. The sun had come out while she was inside. The gray morning had turned into a beautiful afternoon. In the car, she sat for a long moment before starting the engine. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "Heard it went down. How are you?" She typed back, "Tired, relieved, really need to pee." "Diane, that's my girl. I'm bringing ice cream later, the expensive kind." Ellie smiled, for the first time in weeks, a real smile. She started the car and drove home. The house felt different when she walked in. The same furniture, the same art on the walls, the same photos on the mantle. But Grant's presence was gone. His suit still hung in the closet. His toothbrush still sat in the bathroom. His coffee mug still waited in the cabinet. But he was gone. Really gone. She walked through each room slowly, taking inventory, saying goodbye to the life she thought she had, the marriage she thought was real. In the nursery, she stopped. The walls were painted pale yellow. The crib was assembled and waiting. A mobile of stars and moons hung from the ceiling, ready to spin and play music for a baby who would be here soon. Grant had helped paint this room, had assembled the crib while she read the instructions aloud, had hung the mobile and laughed when he got tangled in the wires. Had he been planning to steal from her even then? Even while they prepared a space for their daughter? Even while they dreamed about the future? Yes, the answer was yes. The 63-page document made that clear. Everything had been calculated from the beginning. Ellie touched the soft yellow wall, felt the texture of the paint under her fingers. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the room, to the baby who would sleep here soon, to the future she had imagined. "I'm sorry it won't be the family I planned, but it will be a good family. I promise. It will be full of love, real love, not the fake kind your father pretended to give." The baby kicked, a strong one, like she understood. Ellie smiled through the tears streaming down her face. "Okay," she said. "Okay, time to start over." The weeks after Grant's arrest were a blur of legal proceedings, medical appointments, and emotional exhaustion. Ellie met with lawyers almost daily. Bennett Crawford, her divorce attorney, was a bulldog in a $3,000 suit. He filed aggressive motions, froze accounts, demanded documentation, made Grant's attorney's life miserable. The criminal prosecutor was equally relentless. The evidence Ellie had gathered, combined with the recordings from the bank and the files from the burner phone, created an airtight case. There would be no plea bargain, no reduced charges. Grant and Vanessa would face the full consequences of their actions. But while her legal team fought her battles in court, Ellie's body decided it was done waiting. At 36 weeks pregnant, she woke at 3 in the morning with cramping. Not labor, not yet, but close. A warning that the baby was getting ready. She called Dr. Torres at the hospital. "Describe the pain," the doctor said, her voice calm but alert. "Cramping, pressure, nothing regular yet, but stronger than before. I want you to come in. Let's check on the baby and make sure everything is okay." Ellie drove herself to the hospital. Grant would have driven her before, would have held her hand in the waiting room, would have been there for every moment. Now she was alone. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty at 3:30 in the morning. The emergency room doors slid open with a soft hiss. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. "Mrs. Whitmore?" A nurse appeared with a wheelchair. "Dr. Torres is expecting you. Let's get you upstairs." They hooked her up to monitors, checked the baby's heartbeat, measured contractions, took her blood pressure. "Your blood pressure is elevated," Dr. Torres said, studying the readout with a frown. "Not dangerously so, but higher than I'd like. I've been under some stress." "So I've heard." The doctor's voice was gentle, non-judgmental. "The news travels fast in this city." "I'm sure it does. Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to understand something. This pregnancy has been healthy. The baby is developing normally, but stress takes a physical toll. Your body is telling you to slow down." "I can't slow down. There's too much happening." "Then you need to find help, delegate. Let other people handle what they can handle. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of your daughter. The words landed hard. Ellie knew the doctor was right. Dr. Torres prescribed bed rest, modified activity only, no work, no stress. The irony wasn't lost on Ellie. Her body was failing her at the worst possible moment. Just when she needed to be strongest, just when she needed to fight hardest, her own cells were demanding she stop. Margot took over the legal coordination. Diane took over the business operations at Whitmore Interiors. Bennett Crawford kept her updated with brief, efficient emails that summarized proceedings without requiring her input. Ellie lay in bed and tried not to lose her mind. Grant was attentive from jail. He called every day during the brief window when prisoners were allowed phone access, left messages she never returned, wrote letters she didn't open. His mother, Caroline, called too, hesitant, apologetic, wanting to know if there was anything she could do. Just give me time, Ellie told her. I don't know what I need yet. I understand. Caroline's voice was thick with tears. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I had no idea. I never imagined he could. I know. He was always so charming, so confident. I thought he was happy with you. I thought you were happy together. So did I. There was a long silence. If you need anything, Caroline finally said, anything at all, please call me. I know I'm his mother, but what he did was wrong, unforgivable, and I won't defend him. After she hung up, Ellie lay in the dark and thought about family. Her mother was dead. Her father had left when she was 3. She had no siblings, no aunts or uncles, no cousins she was close to. And now her husband was in jail for trying to destroy her. She was alone, truly alone, about to become a mother with no partner, no family, no support system. The thought was terrifying. At 2 in the morning, unable to sleep, she called Margot. Eleanor. Margot's voice was groggy but alert. What's wrong? And Ellie broke. She told Margot everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the overwhelming sense that she couldn't do this, couldn't raise a child alone, couldn't run a business, couldn't survive the aftermath of Grant's betrayal. I can't keep pretending I'm strong, she sobbed. I'm not strong. I'm falling apart. Every day I wake up and I don't know how I'm going to get through the next hour, let alone the next 18 years. Margot listened without interrupting. When Ellie finally ran out of words, the older woman spoke. Eleanor, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What you're feeling right now is completely normal, reasonable, healthy, even. You've been through something terrible. You're about to go through something wonderful but terrifying. Feeling overwhelmed doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But I can't. Stop. Margot's voice was firm. Stop telling yourself what you can't do. You've already done impossible things. You built a company from nothing. You uncovered a conspiracy that was designed to destroy you. You stood in that bank and watched your husband be arrested without flinching. I was flinching inside. Of course you were. That's my point. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling scared. It means doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Ellie wiped her eyes. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm drowning. Then let us help you. You don't have to do this alone. You have me. You have Diane. You have an entire company full of people who admire you. Margot paused. You're not the victim in this story, Eleanor. You're the one who figured it out. You're the one who built the case. You're the one protecting your daughter. But what if I can't protect her? What if I fail? You won't fail. Do you know how I know that? How? Because you're asking the question. Bad parents don't worry about whether they're good parents. The fact that you're lying awake at 2 in the morning, terrified of failing your daughter, tells me you're going to be an excellent mother. Ellie laughed weakly. That's terrible logic. It's excellent logic. Now go to sleep. The baby needs rest. You need rest. Tomorrow is another day. After the call, Ellie lay in the dark. The bed felt empty without Grant beside her. She had spent months wishing she didn't have to sleep next to him. Now that he was gone, the absence was almost as hard as the presence had been. She thought about her mother again. Grace Whitmore, working 3 jobs, never complaining. Grace Whitmore, raising a child alone in a neighborhood where hope went to die. Grace Whitmore, believing in her daughter even when there was nothing to believe in. I got your stubbornness, Mom, Ellie whispered to the ceiling. I got your fire. and I'm going to use it. The baby moved, a gentle roll. Hear that? Ellie said softly. We're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but we're going to be okay. She fell asleep around 4 in the morning. For the first time in weeks, she didn't dream about Grant or Vanessa or betrayal. She dreamed about a little girl with dark hair and bright eyes, running through a field of yellow flowers, laughing, free. The contractions started for real at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday. Ellie had been in bed, trying to sleep, when the first one hit, a tightening in her abdomen that made her gasp. She breathed through it, counting the seconds. 60 seconds. Then nothing. She waited, watched the clock, tried to relax. 12 minutes later, another one. By 5 in the morning, they were 8 minutes apart and getting stronger. She called Margot. It's time, she said. The baby's coming. I'm on my way. Diane arrived first, still in her pajamas with a jacket thrown over them. Margot was right behind her in professional clothes because Margot was always in professional clothes. How are you feeling? Diane asked, grabbing Ellie's hospital bag from the closet. Like there's a bowling ball trying to exit through a space that wasn't designed for bowling balls. So normal. Apparently. The drive to the hospital was surreal. The city was still waking up. Streetlights flickered off as the sun rose. Commuters hurried to subway stations. The world continued its ordinary business, while Ellie's entire existence was about to change. Another contraction hit as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. She gripped the door handle and breathed. Almost there, Margot said. You're doing great. They admitted her immediately, got her into a gown, hooked her up to monitors. The doctor checked her progress. 4 centimeters, Dr. Torres announced. You're in active labor. This baby is coming today. Today, in a matter of hours, Ellie would be a mother. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The hours that followed were a blur of pain and waiting. Contractions came closer and closer together. The nurses offered epidural. Ellie accepted. The relief was immediate and profound. She could still feel pressure with each contraction, but the sharp edge of pain was gone. Better? Diane asked, holding her hand. So much better. Margot had stepped out to make phone calls. Diane stayed, telling stories and making jokes to distract Ellie from the medical reality of what was happening. Remember when we were juniors in college and you decided to throw a dinner party for 12 people, even though you only knew how to make 3 recipes? Ellie laughed weakly. I made spaghetti for everyone. The same spaghetti, 3 different times. And you acted like it was intentional, like it was some kind of theme. It was a theme. The theme was Ellie doesn't know how to cook. They laughed together. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Then another contraction came, stronger than before, and the nurse checked her again. 8 centimeters. You're getting close. Close, so close to meeting her daughter. Grant should have been here. That thought kept surfacing, unwanted but persistent. He should have been holding her hand, coaching her breathing, being her partner in this. But Grant was in a jail cell, awaiting trial. And even if he wasn't, even if he was free, she wouldn't have wanted him here. Not anymore. Not after everything she knew. She wasn't alone, she reminded herself. She had Margot. She had Diane. She had a whole team of medical professionals dedicated to bringing her baby safely into the world. She wasn't alone. At 7:43 in the evening, after 14 hours of labor, Dr. Torres told her it was time to push. Okay, Eleanor, on the next contraction, I need you to bear down. Give me everything you've got. Ellie pushed and pushed and pushed. 23 minutes that felt like 23 hours. And then at 8:06 in the evening, a small cry filled the room. It's a girl, Dr. Torres announced. Lifting the baby for Ellie to see. A beautiful, healthy girl. They placed Charlotte Eleanor Whitmore on Ellie's chest. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a tuft of dark hair. Eyes that were squeezed shut against the bright lights of the delivery room. Ellie touched her daughter's face, felt the warmth of her skin, heard the little sounds she made as she adjusted to this strange new world. Hello, sweetheart, Ellie whispered through tears. I've been waiting for you. Diane was crying too. So was Margot, though she would deny it later. She's perfect, Diane said, absolutely perfect. She looks just like you, Margot added. Same stubborn chin. Ellie laughed and cried at the same time, held her daughter close, felt the weight of her, the reality of her, this tiny person, this miracle, this new beginning. All the pain and fear and exhaustion of the past months fell away. All the betrayal and anger and heartbreak receded into the background. There was only this moment, this child. And for the first time in a very long time, Eleanor Whitmore felt completely at peace. The first week with Charlotte was a blur of sleepless nights and new experiences, feeding schedules, diaper changes, the constant vigilance of new motherhood. Ellie had read all the books, attended all the classes, thought she was prepared. She wasn't prepared. Nothing could have prepared her for the overwhelming exhaustion, the bone-deep tiredness that came from sleeping in 90-minute increments, the foggy-headed confusion of waking at 2 in the morning, and 3 in the morning, and 4 in the morning. But nothing could have prepared her for the love either, the fierce, protective, all-consuming love that made every sleepless moment worth it. Margot and Diane took shifts staying with her. They held Charlotte while Ellie showered. They made meals. They answered emails and returned phone calls on Ellie's behalf. "This is temporary," Margot kept reminding her. "It gets easier." "When?" "Around 18 years, I'm told." On the 5th day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Ellie was half asleep on the couch, Charlotte dozing in her arms, when the doorbell rang. Diane answered it. "Oh." Diane's voice was cold. "It's you." Ellie looked up to see Caroline Whitmore standing in the doorway. Grant's mother looked older than Ellie remembered, more fragile. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she had been crying recently. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," Caroline said quietly. "I should have called first. I needed to see her. My granddaughter." Ellie felt Diane tense beside her, ready to throw Caroline out if Ellie gave the word. But looking at the older woman, Ellie didn't see an enemy. She saw another victim of Grant's deception, another person who had trusted him, another person he had betrayed. "Come in," Ellie said. Caroline entered slowly, hesitantly, like she expected to be asked to leave at any moment. "I won't stay long," she said. "I just wanted to tell you, I'm so sorry for everything, for what Grant did, for not seeing what he was. You couldn't have known. I'm his mother. I should have known." Caroline's voice broke. "I raised him. I loved him. And he turned into this." "Some people hide their true nature very well." "Yes, they do." Caroline looked at the baby in Ellie's arms. May I hold her?" Ellie considered for a moment. Then she nodded. She placed Charlotte carefully in Caroline's arms. The older woman held her granddaughter with gentle reverence. Tears streamed down her face. "She's beautiful," Caroline whispered. "She looks just like you, Eleanor." "Everyone says that. It's a good thing." Caroline looked up, met Ellie's eyes. "I want you to know something. I'm going to testify at the trial against Grant. I've already told the prosecutor everything I know." Ellie was surprised. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. He committed crimes, he hurt you, he would have taken everything from you and this innocent child. That's not something I can overlook just because he's my son. Most mothers would protect their children, no matter what. I am protecting my child. Grant needs to face consequences, real consequences. That's the only chance he has of ever becoming a better person." Carolyn kissed Charlotte's forehead gently. "And I'm protecting this child too. My granddaughter. She deserves to grow up knowing that wrong actions have consequences, that the adults in her life will stand up for what's right." They talked for another hour. Carolyn shared stories about Grant as a child, the good memories mixed with the red flags she had ignored, the charm that had always been a little too smooth, the lies that had always been a little too convenient. "I think he was always like this," Carolyn admitted sadly. "I just didn't want to see it." None of us did. When Carolyn left, she pressed a check into Ellie's hands. "I know you don't need money," she said, "but I want to contribute something for Charlotte's future, a college fund, whatever you think is best." Ellie looked at the check. $20,000. "Caroline, this is too much. It's not nearly enough. Grant took over $1 million from you. I can't repay that. But I can do this." She squeezed Ellie's hand. "Let me do this, please." After she left, Diane shook her head in amazement. I did not see that coming. Neither did I. She's actually decent. His mother is actually a decent person. I know. Ellie looked at the check again. I guess good people can raise bad children, and bad situations can produce good outcomes. That's very philosophical for someone who hasn't slept in 5 days. Sleep deprivation makes me wise. Sure it does. Now go take a nap. I'll watch the baby. Ellie handed Charlotte to Diane and went upstairs. She lay down on her bed, closed her eyes, and fell asleep within seconds. She dreamed of nothing, just peaceful, restorative darkness. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like she was going to be okay. The trial began 6 months after Charlotte's birth. Ellie entered the courthouse with Margot on one side and Diane on the other. Charlotte was at home with a trusted nanny. The baby was too young to witness what was about to happen, and Ellie didn't want the distraction of caring for her while facing her husband in court. Her ex-husband, she corrected herself. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. She was no longer Mrs. Grant Whitmore. She was Eleanor Whitmore again. Just Eleanor. Just herself. The courtroom was packed with observers, legal professionals, journalists, a few people Ellie recognized from the business community who had come to watch the downfall of the man who had tried to destroy one of their own. Grant was brought in by court officers. He wore a suit, but it hung poorly on him. He had lost weight in jail. His face was gaunt. His famous charm was nowhere in evidence. He looked at Ellie as he was led to the defense table. She met his gaze steadily, didn't flinch, didn't react. After a moment, he looked away. The prosecution presented its case methodically. Documents, recordings, witness testimony. The 63-page plan that Grant and Vanessa had created was entered into evidence. Jurors passed it among themselves, reading with expressions of disbelief and disgust. Marcus Webb, the private investigator, testified about what he had uncovered. Detective Hayes testified about the arrest at the bank. Margot testified about the forged documents on her firm's letterhead. And then it was Ellie's turn. She walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Deborah Kim, guided her through the story, the discovery of the forged signatures, the realization of the affair, the burner phone, the plan to serve divorce papers in the delivery room. Mrs. Whitmore, Deborah said, can you describe for the jury what you felt when you discovered the extent of your husband's betrayal? Ellie took a moment to compose her answer. I felt like I was in free fall. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my future, it was all a lie. The person I trusted most in the world was planning to destroy me. And how did you respond to that feeling? I got to work. I gathered evidence. I built a case because feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to protect my daughter or save my company. Only action would do that. The defense attorney, a slick man named Harold Fitzpatrick, tried his best during cross-examination. He questioned Ellie's motives, suggested she was exaggerating, implied that the evidence might have been manipulated. Ellie answered every question calmly, directly, without rising to the bait. Mrs. Whitmore, Fitzpatrick said, isn't it true that you installed surveillance equipment in your own home without your husband's knowledge? Yes. Doesn't that suggest a level of distrust, a suspicious nature? It suggests that I eventually stopped ignoring the evidence in front of my face. My husband was stealing from me. My husband was having an affair with the paralegal who had access to my legal documents. My husband was planning to take everything I owned while I was in labor. Surveillance was a reasonable response to those facts. Those are allegations, not facts. They're documented in 63 pages of your client's own handwriting. I would call that pretty factual. The jury laughed. Fitzpatrick scowled. Ellie allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The most powerful testimony came from Caroline Whitmore. Grant's own mother took the stand and described her son's lifelong pattern of manipulation, the lies he had told as a child, the charm he had used to get out of trouble, the way he had always seemed to view other people as tools to be used rather than humans to be valued. I loved my son, Carolyn said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. But love doesn't mean blindness. What he did was wrong, criminal, and he needs to face the consequences. Grant stared at his mother as she testified. His face was a mask of disbelief and betrayal. The irony was not lost on anyone. Vanessa took the stand in her own defense. She sobbed. She blamed Grant. She claimed she had been manipulated, threatened, coerced. The burner phone messages destroyed her credibility. Messages where she bragged about how easy it was to forge signatures. Messages where she mocked Ellie's trusting nature. Messages where she counted down the days until she could move into the house they had bought with stolen money. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Grant received 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Vanessa received 6 years. As they were led away in handcuffs, Grant turned to look at Ellie one last time. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry." Ellie looked at him. This man she had married, this man she had trusted, this man who had given her Charlotte, even if he had never truly wanted to be a father. "I know," she said, "but sorry isn't enough." 1 year after the arrest, Ellie stood in her newly expanded office and watched the sun rise over the city. Whitmore Interiors had doubled in size. The publicity from the trial, initially dreaded, had turned into unexpected marketing gold. Clients loved a comeback story, loved supporting a woman who had survived betrayal and built something even stronger from the ashes. Charlotte was walking now, toddling around the house on unsteady legs, getting into everything, filling every room with her laughter and her curiosity and her endless energy. She looked just like Ellie, everyone said so. The same dark hair, the same determined chin, the same fire in her eyes. "You're going to be trouble," Ellie told her every night before bed, "just like your mama." Charlotte would giggle and reach for her mother's face, as if she understood and approved of the comparison. The letters from prison had stopped coming months ago. Ellie didn't know if Grant had given up or simply run out of things to say. Either way, she was grateful for the silence. He had never asked about Charlotte, not once in all his letters, not once during the trial, not once in any communication from his lawyers regarding the divorce, his own daughter, and he never asked if she was healthy, happy, alive. That told Ellie everything she needed to know about the man she had married. Margot stopped by the office on a Thursday morning with coffee and congratulations. The latest quarterly report showed record profits. "You did it," Margot said, setting down the cup. "Against all odds, against everything that was thrown at you, you not only survived, you thrived. I had help. You had support. The work was all you." Ellie looked around her office, the awards on the wall, the photos of completed projects, the picture of Charlotte on her desk, grinning at the camera with 2 teeth and an abundance of joy. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Always. When this all started, when I first found those forged documents, I thought my life was over. I thought everything I had built was going to be taken away. I thought I would end up back on Prospect Street, with nothing, just like my mother feared. And now I realize that the life I thought was ending was never real in the first place. My marriage was a lie. My husband was a fraud. Everything I believed about my future was based on deception." Ellie smiled. "When that illusion shattered, I didn't lose my life. I got a chance to build a real one." Margot squeezed her hand. "That's wisdom, Eleanor. Hard-won wisdom. The hardest kind." That night, Ellie put Charlotte to bed with the usual routine. Bath, pajamas, story, songs. "Good night, sweetheart," she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Mama loves you." Charlotte was already asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. Ellie stood in the doorway of the nursery for a long moment, watching, thinking. She had lost so much in the past year: her marriage, her trust, her belief in the man she had chosen as a partner. But she had gained so much more: her freedom, her self-respect, her daughter. And looking back, she realized that the trade wasn't even close to fair. She had gotten the better end, by far. The doorbell rang. She went downstairs to find Diane on the porch with wine and terrible reality TV queued up on her phone. "Ready to watch rich people make bad decisions?" Diane asked, brandishing a bottle. "Always." They settled on the couch, glasses filled, the sound turned low so as not to wake Charlotte. "So," Diane said, "any word from the prison?" "Nothing for 3 months now." "Good riddance." My thoughts exactly. They watched television for a while, commented on the drama, predicted who would betray whom. Can I ask you something? Diane said during a commercial break. Anything. Do you ever regret it? Any of it? Ellie considered the question carefully. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it, she said finally. I regret ignoring the signs that were right in front of my face. I regret the time I wasted believing in a lie. But I don't regret what came after. I don't regret Charlotte. I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret building something stronger from the wreckage. Good answer. It's the only honest one. Diane raised her glass. To honest answers. To honest answers. They clinked glasses, drank, turned back to the television. Outside, the stars were coming out. The neighborhood was quiet. Charlotte slept peacefully upstairs. Ellie thought about transformation. How it happened not through sudden revelation, but through daily choices. Through getting up every morning. Through putting one foot in front of the other. Through refusing to let the worst thing that ever happened to you become the defining feature of your life. She had been transformed by this experience. Not broken, not destroyed, transformed. From a woman who trusted blindly to a woman who trusted wisely. From a woman who feared confrontation to a woman who faced it head on. From a woman who defined herself by her marriage to a woman who defined herself by her strength. Grant would spend years in prison, haunted by what he had lost. Vanessa would spend years in prison, stripped of the glamorous future she had schemed for. Their conspiracy had ended exactly as the title of their story would suggest. A lifetime of regret, but not for Ellie. For Ellie, there was only the future, bright and open and full of possibility. The credits rolled on another episode. Diane reached for the remote. One more? Ellie smiled. One more. They stayed up too late, laughed too loud, ate too much ice cream from the expensive pints Diane always brought. Just two friends enjoying an ordinary evening. Just a mother savoring the extraordinary life she had built from the ruins of the one that was stolen. The life she had fought for, the life she had earned, the life she deserved. In the morning, Charlotte would wake her with babbling and reaching arms. There would be breakfast to make and messes to clean and a business to run and a daughter to raise. But for now, there was this moment, this peace, this joy. Eleanor Whitmore had survived betrayal, theft, and heartbreak. She had emerged stronger, wiser, and free. Her ex-husband would spend years in prison, haunted by his choices. His mistress would carry the weight of her crimes forever. Their conspiracy had ended in exactly what they deserved, a lifetime of regret. But Eleanor's story ended differently. Her story ended with transformation, with triumph, with love. Her story ended with a little girl sleeping upstairs, dreaming innocent dreams, secure in the knowledge that her mother would always protect her. Her story ended with a certain knowledge that some things cannot be stolen. Courage, resilience, the capacity for love. Those things belong to Eleanor, and no one would ever take them away. I love you, she whispered to the house, to her daughter, to herself, to the future that stretched out before her like an open road. And for the first time in a very long time, she truly believed it. And that is how Eleanor Whitmore turned her darkest moment into her greatest triumph. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you find your strength? Share this story with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible, that starting over is not the end. It is a new beginning. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and never let anyone dim your light.